Hello, Sarah. How are you, Sarah? Thank you so much for joining to the city room, Sarah. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Sorry, I do not understand because I'm Italian. Oh, you're Italian. You are Italian. Thank you for joining my stream, Italian brother. Wait, just wait 1 second. Hello everyone, hurry up to join the stream, guys. Hello Ray, how are you, Ray? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, my brother. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Sorry, I got to bed. 1 second, then you have to go to the bed, my dear. Yeah, guys, right for the today last session, guys. Thank you so much for joining to the city room. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat. Why you wanna say bye? You never can go anywhere. You will be there, yeah. You will be there, Ray. Why you are going, my dear? Thank you so much for joining to the city room. Marley, how are you, dear Marley? Thank you so much for joining to the city room. Thank you so much for your watching. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up, guys. Hurry up to write your name in the chat, guys. Our first member is Sarah. How are you, dear Sarah? Thank you so much for joining to the city room, dear Sarah. And the second member is Rev. How are you, dear Rev? Thank you so much for joining, dear Rev. The third member is Marley. How are you, dear Marley? Thank you so much for joining to the city room, dear Marley. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Thank you, Marley. Thank you so much, my dear. A lot of love and respect for you joining, guys. Send the laughing disco for the appreciation of the stream, guys. Nala, how are you, dear Nala? Thank you so much for joining, Nala. Darling, how are you, dear Darling? Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, Lilia, how are you, dear Leela? Thank you so much for joining, Leela. How are you, Leela? Thank you. Rahi, how are you, dear Rahi? Thank you so much for joining, Rahi. Thank you. Akro, how are you, dear Akro? Thank you so much for joining to the city room. Lily, how are you, pretty Lily? Thank you so much for joining, Lily. Dennis, how are you, dear Dennis? Thank you so much for joining. Hawa, how are you, dear Hawa? Thank you so much for joining, Hawa. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat. Greeting from Russia. Thank you so much for watching, Russia. Dennis, I write your name, my dear. Thank you. Arera, how are you, dear Arera? Thank you so much for joining. Aria, thank you so much for joining to the city ring. Nari, how are you, dear Nari? Thank you so much for joining to the city ring, making the like and subscribing to the channel. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, Adoria, how are you, dear Adoria? Thank you so much for joining, Adoria. Please, guys, someone send a laughing disco to do the super chat. Niku, how are you, Niku? To help me to completing my goal. Charleto, how are you, Charleto? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring, Charleto. How are you, child lady? Thank you so much for your joining. Lara, how are you, dear Lara? Thank you so much for joining, dear Lara. Lucas, how are you, dear Lucas? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Lucas. Thank you. Thank you so much for your joining. Rohan, how are you, dear Rohan? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Thank you. Thank you so much for your joining. What's up? Well, I am good, my dear Wendy. How are you, Wengal? Thank you so much for joining to stream. How are you, my lovely brother? Thank you so much for your joining. Joel, how are you, dear Joel? Thank you so much for your joining, Joel. Thank you. Thank you so much for your joining. Anila, how are you, dear Anila? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Anila. A lot of love and respect. Are, how are you, dear Are? Thank you so much for your joining, Are. How are you, Are? Thank you. Alwar, how are you, dear Alwar? Thank you so much for your joining, Alwar. How are you, Alwar? Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Dana, how are you, dear Dana? Angel, how are you, dear Angel? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you. Max, how are you, dear Max? Thank you so much for joining, Max. How are you, Max? Harry, how are you, pretty Harry? Thank you so much for joining my stream, dear Harry. Alicia, how are you, dear Alicia? Thank you so much for your joining, Alicia. How are you, pretty? Thank you so much for joining to a stream. Thank you. Thank you, Harry. I write your name. Noun, how are you, dear Noun? Thank you so much, Noun. A lot of love and respect. Thank you so much, James. How are you, James? Shout out to James. James, you will be got the subscribe if you have shout out to James. James, you do a super chat on our stream, my dear. Walid, how are you, dear Walid? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Oh, Yoni, how are you, Yoni? Thank you so much for joining to a stream. Chief, how are you, dear Chief? Thank you so much for joining to a stream. Maria, how are you, pretty Maria? Thank you so much for joining, Maria. You made me a day. You make my day by doing a super chat, by sending a gifting, by you. Yeah, you have anything you have to send for my appreciation. Sam, how are you, Sam? Roby, how are you, dear Roby? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Roby. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Alani, Alia, how are you, dear Alana? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Alana. Thank you, Alana. Thank you so much for your joining. Assad, how are you, dear Assad? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Hannah, how are you, pretty Hannah? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Hannah. Ava, how are you, dear Ava? How are you, Ava? Thank you so much for your joining, Anna. Wallace, sorry, Wallace. Thank you so much for joining. Azal, how are you, dear Azal? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Azal, how are you, Azal? Thank you, Millie. How are you, dear Millie? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Millie. Redwan, how are you, Redwan? Thank you so much for joining, Redwan. How are you, Redwan? Thank you so much for joining. Parker, how are you, Parker? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Parker. Carlos, how are you, dear Carlos? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Anaya, how are you, pretty Anaya? Thank you, Anaya, for joining my stream. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much. Dana, how are you, dear Dana? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Dana. Kale, how are you, dear Kale? Thank you so much for joining, dear Kale. How are you, Kale? Thank you so much for your joining. Azhar, how are you? Your Azhar. How are you, Azhar? Thank you. Walid, how are you, Walid? Thank you so much for joining to a stream. Shahid, how are you, dear Shahid? Thank you so much for joining, Shahid. How are you, Shahid? Esteban, how are you, Esteban? Thank you so much for joining, Esteban. Thank you. Please, Pasal is my day. Pasality, how are you? How are you, Pasality? How are you, dear Pasality? Bless you, healthy life, Pasality. Thank you so much. Thank you. Your son is watching my stream, Pasality. A lot of love and respect for you, for you, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you. Ichu, how are you? Ichu, thank you so much for joining. Abby, how are you, dear Abby? Please, guys, someone has to send a laughing disco. Do a super chat, guys. Yeah, click on my goal. Do a super chat. Click on the money icon, guys. Do a super chat for, click on the money icon to do a super chat, guys. Alana, how are you, dear Alana? Thank you so much for you joining, Alana. Thank you, Marty. How are you, dear Marty? Thank you so much for you joining, Marty. How are you, Marty? Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Osman. How are you, dear Osman? Thank you so much for joining, Osman. Lucy, how are you, dear Lucy? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring. Matthew, how are you, dear Matthew? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring, Matthew. Thank you so much for your joining to a city ring. Thank you so much for your joining. Bakar, how are you, Bakar? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring. Arlo, how are you, dear Arlo? Thank you so much, Arlo. How are you, Arlo? Megan, how are you, dear Megan? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring, dear Megan. I think I know everything. Variety, how are you, Variety? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring, dear Variety. Zoya, how are you, dear Zoya? Thank you so much for joining to a city ring. Amelie, please do a super chat, guys. Please do a super chat, guys. Amelie, how are you, Amelie? Melissa, how are you, pretty Melissa? How are you, Melissa? Thank you so much, Melissa. How are you, Melissa? Thank you so much for your joining. Leah, how are you, pretty Leah? Thank you so much for your joining, Leah. How are you, Leah? Mimi, how are you, dear Mimi? Thank you so much for joining, Mimi. How are you, Mimi? Thank you, Sophia. How are you, pretty Sophia? How are you, Sophia? Thank you so much for your joining, Sophia. Thank you so much. To write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Kevin, how are you, dear Kevin? A lot of love and respect for you joining for the Kevin. Thank you so much for the Kevin. Yeah, guys, Yana, how are you, Yana? Thank you so much for your joining to the stream, Yana. How are you, Yana? Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Amber, how are you, dear Amber? Thank you so much for your joining, Amber. Alison, how are you, dear Alison? How are you, Alison? Thank you so much for your joining, Alison. How are you, Alison? Thank you. Scene, how are you, dear Scene? Thank you so much for joining, guys. Please, guys, write your name in the chat. Giolan, how are you, Giolan? Thank you so much, Giolan. Please send a laughing disco, guys, and do a super chat, guys. Jack, how are you, Jack? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, Jack. Sagam, how are you, dear Sagam? Thank you so much for your joining to a stream. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Sam, how are you, dear Sam? Thank you so much for joining, Sam. Robin, how are you, dear Robin? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Robin. How are you, Robin? Diamond, how are you, dear Diamond? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Diamond. How are you, Diamond? Robina, how are you, dear Robina? Thank you so much for joining, Robina. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Alina, how are you, dear Alina? Thank you so much for your joining, Alina. How are you, Alina? Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Leondas, how are you, dear Leon? Leondas, how are you, Leondas? Thank you so much for your joining. And thank you so much for your joining, Leondas. Rosgar, how are you, Rosgar? Thank you so much for your joining. Evelyn, how are you, dear Evelyn? Thank you so much for your joining, Evelyn. How are you, Evelyn? Please, guys, someone do a super chat, guys. Farid, how are you, Farid? Thank you so much for joining, Farid. Thank you so much for your subscribing. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Liz, how are you, pretty Liz? How are you, Liz? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. How are you, Lisa? Thank you so much for the subscribing. Lena, how are you, pretty Lena? Thank you so much for your joining, Lena. Thank you, Jackie. How are you, dear Jackie? Thank you so much for your joining. Mimic, how are you, dear Mimic? Thank you so much for your joining. Delancey, how are you there, Delancey? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Delancey. How are you, Delancey? Thank you so much for your joining, Delancey. Hurry up, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much, Ivana. How are you, dear Ivana? Thank you so much for your joining. Krishna, how are you, my lovely brother? Krishna, how are you, Krishna? Thank you so much, Krishna. Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you. Saniha, how are you, Saniha? Thank you so much for your joining, Saniha. How are you, Saniha? Thank you. Underage, how are you, dear Underage? How are you, Underage? Thank you so much, Underage. Thank you. Alexandra, how are you, Alexandra? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Alexandra. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Thank you. Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you, Alexandra. Sam, how are you, Sam? Thank you so much for the joining, dear Sam. Zara, how are you, pretty Zara? How are you, Zara? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Zara. How are you, Zara? Alije, how are you, pretty Alije? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Alije. How are you, Alije? Thank you so much for your joining, Mario. Rada, how are you, dear Rada? Thank you so much for your joining, Rada. How are you, Rada? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel, and lot of love and respect for your joining, guys. Hurry up, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat. Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Tarishi, how are you, Tarishi? Thank you so much for your joining, Tarishi. How are you, Tarishi? Leoki, how are you, dear Leoki? Thank you so much for joining, Leoki. Daniel, how are you, Daniel? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Daniel. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Ken, how are you, dear Ken? Thank you so much, Ken. Scarlett, how are you, Scarlett? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Scarlett. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Leoke, how are you, dear Leoke? Thank you so much for your joining. Jodit, how are you, Jodit? Thank you so much for your joining, Jodit. Adarina, how are you, dear Adarina? Thank you so much for joining, Adarina. How are you, Adarina? Kia, how are you, dear Kia? Thank you so much for your joining, my dear. Hurry up, guys. Aliza, how are you, pretty Aliza? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Aliza. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat. Thank you, Seven. Thank you for the star, dear Seven. Please send a laughing disco. Please, guys, somebody have to send a laughing disco. Do a super chat, guys, for the appreciation. Thank you so much for your joining. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Lily, how are you, dear Lily? Thank you so much for your joining, Lily. Thank you, Lily. Samantha, how are you, dear Samantha? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Samantha. Thank you, Samantha. Nicole, how are you, dear Nicole? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Nicholas. How are you, Nicholas? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you for the heart. Thank you, my lovely brother. Please, thank you so much. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you so much. God bless you. Please send a laughing disco, my pretty, if you can easily, for my support. Send a laughing disco. Thank you. Tail, how are you, dear Tail? Thank you so much, Tail. Jolene, how are you, Jolene? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Jolene. Thank you, Jolene. And Daniel, how are you, dear Daniel? How are you, Daniel? Thank you so much, Danala. Thank you so much for joining, Danala. Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up, guys. Making the like. Megan, how are you, dear Megan? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Megan. A lot of love and respect for your joining, Megan. Thank you, Megan. Leland, how are you, dear Leland? Thank you so much for joining, dear Leland. How are you, Leland? Thank you so much for you joining. Thank you. Khaled, how are you, dear Khaled? Thank you so much for you joining, Khaled. How are you, Khaled? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat. Kansili, how are you, dear Kansili? How are you, Kansili? Thank you so much for you joining, Kansili. Thank you, Jazz. How are you, dear Jazz? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, Jazz. Thank you. Sivinio, how are you, Sivino? Thank you so much for joining, Sivino. Thank you. Our respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Pauline, how are you, Pauline? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Please, guys, do a super chat, guys. Do a super chat, guys. Do a super chat. Preet, how are you, dear Preet? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Preet. Hale, how are you, dear Hale? Thank you so much for you joining, Hale. Ayan, how are you, dear Ayan? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Ayan. Hurry up, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Watson, how are you, dear Watson? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Watson. Becky, how are you, dear Becky? Thank you so much for joining to stream, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Resap, how are you, dear Resap? Thank you so much for joining. Ayonchi, how are you, dear Ayonchi? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, Ayonchi. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Salas, how are you, dear Salas? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, Salas. Please, guys, do a laughing disco, guys. Homna, how are you, dear Homna? Thank you so much for joining, dear Homna. And Dali, how are you, dear Dali? Thank you so much for joining. And Jason Noor, how are you, Jason Noor? Thank you so much. Thank you for the 6 tab on Ares. Thank you. Please send a laughing disco, dear Ares. Please send a laughing disco, Ares. Thank you so much, Ares. Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Ares. Thank you so much, Ares. Thank you. Please send a laughing disco, dear Ares. Thank you. Thank you, Ares. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ares. Thank you. Please send a laughing disco, dear Ares. Thank you so much for the gift. Thank you. Thank you, Ares. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. How are you, Karen? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, Karen. How are you, Karen? Harper, how are you, Harper? Thank you so much for joining. Please send a laughing disco. Please send a laughing disco, guys. Samira, how are you, Samira? Thank you, Samira. Alia, how are you, dear Alia? How are you, dear Alia? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, dear Alia. How are you? Anabia, how are you, Anabia? Anabia, how are you, Anabia? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Anabia. How are you, Anabia? Thank you so much for joining, Anabia. How are you, dear Anabia? Thank you so much for joining, dear Anabia. Thank you so much for joining, Anabia. Please, Anabia, send a laughing disco, please. Please, only one laughing disco, Anabia. Only one laughing disco. I have only one laughing disco. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pretty. Thank you. And yeah, guys, I'm Brende. How are you, dear Brende? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Brende. How are you, dear Brende? Thank you so much. Julie, how are you, dear Julie? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Julie. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Marat, how are you, Marat? Thank you so much for joining, Marat. Lisa, how are you, dear Lisa? Thank you so much for joining to a stream. Sarona, how are you, dear Sarona? Thank you so much for your joining. Julie, I write your name, my dear. Thank you so much for your joining, Julie. Please, guys, someone send a laughing disco, guys. Asbella, how are you, dear Asbella? Thank you so much, Asbella. Please, guys, don't forget to subscribing my channel. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Thank you. Sally, how are you, dear Sally? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Sally. Wahid, how are you, dear Wahid? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Madu, how are you, dear Madu? Thank you so much for joining, dear Madu. How are you, Madu? Thank you so much for your joining. Saronu, how are you, dear Saronu? Thank you so much for your joining, Saronu. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Adim, how are you, dear Adim? Thank you so much for joining, dear Adim. Thank you so much for your joining my stream, my dear. Every single person have to write your name in the chat, guys. Marcus, how are you, Marcus? Thank you so much for joining. Megan, how are you, dear Megan? Thank you so much for your joining, Megan. Thank you so much for your joining. Nafisa, I have right. This LR name has been written. Why you are spamming, guys? Sarinu, how are you, Sarinu? Sarinu has written. Daniel, how are you, Daniel? Thank you so much for your joining, Daniel. How are you, Daniel? Thank you so much for joining. Zerwa, how are you, dear Zerwa? Thank you so much for joining, Zerwa. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zerwa. Hurry up, guys. Lexi, how are you, dear Lexi? Thank you so much for joining, Lexi. Thank you. Thank you, Lexi. Sente, how are you, dear Sente? Thank you so much for joining, Sente. And thank you so much. Thank you. Zoran, how are you, dear Zoran? Thank you so much for joining. Please, guys, someone has to do a super chat, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Jassy, how are you, Jassy? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Jassy. Leo C, how are you, dear Leo C? How are you, Leo C? Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up, guys. Nafisa, how are you, Nafisa? How are you, Nafisa? Thank you so much for your joining, Nafisa. Leo, how are you, dear Leo? Thank you so much for joining, Leo. How are you, Leo? Thank you so much for your joining, Leo. Hadan, how are you, dear Hadan? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Hadan. How are you, dear Hadan? Thank you so much, Hadan. How are you, dear Hadan? Hurry up, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Ivan, how are you, dear Ivan? Thank you so much for joining. Please, guys, do a super chat, guys. Click on the money icon. You will be showing in the right corner. Yeah, guys, you will be showing a right corner a money icon, guys. To do the super chat, please, guys. Sarah, how are you, dear Sarah? Thank you so much for joining, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining. Rashila, how are you, dear Rashila? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Rashil. How are you, Rashil? Alexandro, how are you, Alexandro? Thank you so much for joining, Alexandro. How are you, Alexandra? Thank you so much for joining. Amber, how are you, dear Amber? Thank you so much for joining, Amber. Kale, how are you, dear Kale? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Kale. Thank you so much for your joining. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat. Right, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Paji, how are you, dear Paji? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Paji. Thank you so much, Paji. Kaleste, how are you, Kaleste? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Kaleste. January, how are you, dear January? How are you, January? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Darling, how are you, darling? Kale, how are you, dear Kale? Thank you so much for joining, Kale. How are you, Kale? Dalan, how are you, dear Dalan? Thank you so much for joining, Dalan. Thank you for the follow state. Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you so much, dear Taylor. Thank you. Love you, my lovely brother, Taylor. Thank you so much, dear Taylor. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you much. Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you so much. Thank you, my lovely brother. God bless you, Taylor. Thank you so much, my dear. Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Taylor. Thank you so much, my love. God bless you, dear. Thank you. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Malina, how are you, dear Malina? Thank you so much, Malina. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Mal, how are you, dear Mal? Thank you so much for joining, Mal. My name is Rai. How are you, dear Rai? Thank you so much for joining, Rai. Ima, how are you, dear Ima? Thank you so much, Ima. How are you, dear Ima? Thank you, Ima. Thank you. Cia, how are you, dear C? Cia, how are you, Cia? How are you, Cia? Thank you so much, Cia. Molle, how are you, dear Molle? How are you, Mol? Melody, how are you, Melody? Thank you so much for joining, Melody. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you, Dennis. How are you, dear Dennis? Thank you so much for your joining, Dennis. A lot of love and respect, Dennis. Varon, how are you, dear Varon? Thank you so much for joining, Varon. Mila, how are you, dear Mila? Thank you so much for joining, dear Mila. Addy, how are you, dear Addy? Thank you so much for your joining, Addy. How are you, Addy? Thank you. Thank you, Addy. How are you, dear Addy? Thank you. A respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Leru, how are you, dear Leru? Thank you so much for your joining, Leru. How are you, dear Leru? Zaur, how are you, dear Zaur? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining, Zaur. How are you, dear Zaur? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Harleen, how are you, dear Harleen? Thank you so much for your joining, Harlan. How are you, dear Harlan? A lot of love and respect for your joining. Email, how are you, dear Email? Thank you so much for your joining, Email. How are you, Email? Thank you. Faria, how are you, dear Faria? Thank you so much for joining to stream, pretty Faria. How are you, Faria? Bali, how are you, dear Bali? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Bali. How are you, Bali? Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Mona, how are you, dear Mona? Thank you so much, Abbas. How are you, dear Abbas? Thank you so much for joining. Sakai, how are you, dear Sakai? Thank you so much for joining to stream. And yeah, guys, and Golia, how are you, Golia? Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much. Ima, how are you, pretty Ima? Thank you so much, Ima. How are you, dear Ima? Thank you so much for Ima. Ascendero, how are you, Ascendero? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Ascendero. Thank you so much, Ascendero. Emerson, how are you, dear Emerson? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Emerson. Thank you so much, Emerson. How are you, Emerson? Thank you, Emerson. Yori, how are you, Yori? Thank you so much for joining, Yori. How are you, Yori? Thank you so much for joining. Balkis, how are you, Balkis? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Balkis. Balkis, sorry, pretty Balkis. Thank you so much for joining to stream. Rena, how are you, dear Rena? Thank you so much for joining, Rena. How are you, Rena? Please, guys, send the laughing disco, guys. Do super chat. Yeah, guys, do the super chat, guys. Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much, Jana. How are you, dear Jana? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Sapo Bully, how are you, Sapo Bully? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Welcome, dear. Adarine, how are you, Adarine? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Adarine. How are you, Adarine? Please send a follow state, guys. Jana, write your name, my dear. Thank you so much for your joining. Fahim, write your name, Fahim. Prim, how are you, Prim? Thank you so much for joining, Prim. Fahim, how are you, Fahim? Thank you so much, Fahim. How are you, dear Fahim? Lucy, how are you, Lucy? How are you, Lucy? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Mary, how are you, dear Mary? Thank you so much for joining. Alicia, I write your name, my dear. Fahim, I write your name. Thank you. Alicia, I write. Mary, I write. Zalen, how are you, dear Zalen? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Zalen. How are you, dear Zalen? Zalen, thank you so much for joining, Zalen. And Gail, how are you, dear Gail? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Gail. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Anna, how are you, dear Anna? Thank you so much for joining, Anna. Thank you so much, guys. Please, somebody have to do a super chat. Kevin, how are you, dear Kevin? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Kevin. A lot of love and respect for your joining. God, how are you, dear God? Thank you so much for joining, God. Kevin, I write your name, my dear God. I write. Valerie, how are you, Valerie? Thank you so much. Valerie is my favorite name, guys. I have always say that. Valerie is my favorite. Yeah. Thank you. Jerry, how are you, Jerry? Thank you so much for joining, Jerry. Lucy, how are you, dear Lucy? How are you, dear Liu? Okay, how are you, Liu? Okay. Wildan, how are you, dear Wildan? How are you, dear Wildan? Thank you so much for Satar. Thank you so much, my dear. Thank you. Well done. Please, somebody have to send a laughing disco. Somebody. Darina, how are you, Darina? Thank you, Darina. You have sent a big gift, please, Darina. To play us some more big. Yeah, Grace, how are you, Grace? And Grace. Sorry. Guess. How are you, Guess? Thank you so much for joining, Guess. Carmen, how are you, Carmen? Thank you so much for joining, Carmen. Rama, how are you, dear Rama? Thank you so much, Rama. Leah, how are you, Leah? Thank you so much for joining, Leah. How are you, Leah? Thank you so much for your joining. Jose, how are you, dear Jose? Thank you so much for joining, Jose. Awa, how are you, dear Awa? Thank you so much for joining, Awa. How are you, Awa? Thank you so much for your joining, Abba. Abby, how are you, dear Abby? Thank you so much for your joining, Abby. Please, guys, send the laughing disco. Do the super chat, guys. Thank you. Zender, how are you, dear Zender? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Zender. How are you, dear Zender? Thank you. James, how are you, dear James? Thank you so much for your joining, James. How are you, James? Thank you. Goes, how are you, dear Goes? Brooklyn, how are you, dear Brooklyn? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Brooklyn. Thank you for the goal. Thank you, Brooklyn. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for the goal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Last, how are you, dear Last? Thank you so much for joining, Last. Thank you for Last. Thank you. Thank you for Last. And thank you for Cassidy. How are you, Cassidy? Thank you so much, Cassidy. Thank you. Thank you so much for the Cassidy. Thank you so much for the Cassidy. Thank you, Cassidy. God bless you, pretty Cassidy. Thank you. Thank you, Cassidy. Thank you so much, my dear. God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Cassidy. Thank you so much, Cassidy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, my love. Thank you. Thank you, Les and Cassini. If you are both can easily send a laughing disco, please send me only a one laughing disco for my appreciation. Laughing disco is my is my dream gift. Laughing disco is my dream gift. Any person can send, guys. Jason, how are you, Jason? Thank you. Laughing disco is my dream gift. If anybody can send, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my love. Thank you. Yeah, guys, laughing disco is my and dream gift. Thank you so much. Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much, Leahs. Thank you so much, Leahs. Thank you. You are in my record. You are in my record. I have to add you in my record. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Last. Thank you so much. God bless you, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, laughing disco is my dream gift, guys. Yeah, any person have sent me a laughing disco, voila, I have to feel very happy. I did not have to get support I know, but if somebody has to send laughing disco, I have to feel very happy. I have loved to see you laughing disco on my screen. Laughing disco is my Amy. How are you, dear Amy? Thank you, Amy. Ayat, how are you, Ayat? Thank you so much, Ayat. How are you, Ayat? Thank you so much for your joining, Ayat. Hania, how are you, dear Hania? Thank you so much for your joining, Hania. Milab, how are you, dear Milab? Thank you so much, Milab. How are you, Milab? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Alberto, how are you, dear Alberto? Thank you so much for joining to a room, Alberto. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for the gift. Thank you. Gnex, please don't forget to subscribing my channel. And don't forget to subscribing my channel. Arcia, how are you, Arcia? Thank you so much for joining to a stream. Arake, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Jannat, how are you, pretty Jannat? How are you, Jannat? Thank you so much for your joining, Jannat. Thank you so much. Thank you, Samira. How are you, Samira? Thank you so much for joining, Samira. Yes, Samira. How are you, Samira? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you, Aleph. How are you, dear Aleph? Thank you so much, Aleph. How are you, Aleph? Thank you so much, Aleph. Sakairos, how are you, dear Sakairos? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Sakairos. Thank you, Sakairos. Thank you. Marcelo, how are you, dear Marcelo? How are you, dear Marcelo? Thank you so much for your joining, Marcelo. Milia, how are you, dear Milia? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Mala. How are you, dear Mala? A lot of love and respect for your joining. Felix, how are you, dear Felix? Thank you so much for joining, Felix. Please, guys, and some person, Anil, how are you, Anil? To donate on the screen, guys. I send any gift on the screen, guys. Any gift on the screen, yeah. Play any gift, guys. Play any gift on the screen, guys. Damar, how are you, Damar? Thank you so much, Damar. How are you, Damar? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Zende, how are you, dear Zandia? How are you, dear Zandia? Thank you so much for your joining, Zandia. Zandia, I write your name, dear Zandia. Harmony, how are you, dear Harmony? Thank you so much, Harmony. How are you, Harmony? Harmony, I write your name. Please, guys, to write your name in the chat. Can you move the board? Yeah, I have to move the board. Bryce, how are you, Bryce? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Bryce. How are you, Bryce? Aram, how are you, Aram? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Aram. IGA, thank you so much for joining. KK, how are you, KK? Please, guys, someone send a laughing disco, guys. Someone send a laughing disco. Do a super chat, guys. KK, how are you, KK? Thank you so much for your joining. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much. If I write a laughing disco, no, you don't write. You have sent a laughing disco, my dear. If you can, you send a laughing disco. If you cannot send a laughing disco, you do a super chat. Click on the money icon. Yeah, click on the money icon to do a super chat. You have to play a laughing disco. You have to play a laughing disco on the screen for the support. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Can you highlight my names if I send? Yeah, I highlight your name. I highlight your name if you have to send me. Yeah. Yeah, I highlight. I have to highlight. I have to add my highlight. You have to play a laughing disco. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you, my lovely brother. Thank you. Yeah, lady, how are you? Yeah, lady. Thank you so much for joining to stream. Yeah, lady. Thank you so much for joining to stream. Yeah, lady. A lot of love and respect. God bless you. And Lexia, God bless you, my dear. Thank you so much. I will also add your name on here. Thank you. Thank you for the every person those have to join the stream and have to support me. Your small support really. And Talin, thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Thank you for the laughing disco. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, dear Lexi. Thank you. God bless you, dear Lexi. Thank you. Shout out to Lexia, guys. Everybody have to like, subscribe the Lexia. Me love. Okay, Milab. Yeah, guys. It is no, it is Milab. Okay, everybody have to every person have to like, subscribe the Milab. It's Alexia, guys. Milab. Thank you, Milab. Thank you so much, Milab. Thank you so much, Milab. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my lovely brother. God bless you, healthy life. Always God give you a success. And yeah, God give you a much more success in your life, my dear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, my dear. Thank you. Let me write your name on here. Sorry, I have to forget to writing your name on the sticky note. Thank you so much. Thank you. Every person have to write. Every person have to like and subscribe the Milab. Milab, don't forget to subscribing my channel, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you. You can also send a beautiful gift if you have a gifts. You have to play a small gift on my screen. Thank you so much, my dear. Thank you so much for playing the beautiful game on the screen. Thank you so much, my lovely brother. Dance a palm, guys. Dance a palm, please. Dance a palm, guys. Samir, how are you, dear Samir? Thank you so much for joining. Christina, how are you, Christina? Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much. To write your name in the chat, guys. Bram, how are you, dear Bram? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Bram. Zoe, how are you, dear Zoe? Thank you so much for joining, Zoe. Johun, how are you, Johun? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Johun. How are you, Johun? Thank you so much, Johun. Thank you. Zozo, Zahara, how are you, Zahara? Thank you so much for joining, Zahara. Welcome, dear. Welcome, dear Christina. Thank you so much. Everybody, make the like, subscribing. Christina, you can super chat if you wanna can easily. Moke, how are you, Moke? Thank you so much for joining, Moke. Everybody have to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yamili. Every person have to write your name in the chat and send a laughing disco. I cannot write a Zozo. Presile, how are you, Presile? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Presile. How are you, Presile? Thank you so much for joining, Presile. A lot of love and respect. Seyon, how are you, dear Seyon? How are you, dear Seyon? Leoran, how are you, dear Leoran? How are you, Leoran? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Leoran. How are you, dear Leoran? Thank you so much for joining my screen, Leoran. Ran, how are you, dear Ran? How are you, dear Ran? Thank you so much for your joining, Ran. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Leah, how are you, pretty Leah? Thank you so much for your joining, Leah. How are you, Leah? And Keonu, how are you, dear Kyo? Kyo. Sorry, 1 second. Let me write again. What's name? It's a very tough name. It's a name really. Zomoko, please. I will sub. Thank you, Zomoko. How are you, Zomoko? Where are you from? Walking, Zomiko. Yoman, how are you, Yoman? You are from watching America? Really? You are watching from America? Omar, how are you, dear Omar? Thank you so much for joining, dear Omar. How are you, Omar? Yeah. You send a beautiful gift of laughing disco. You have to play out only one laughing disco. Eden, how are you, Eden? Thank you so much, Eden. How are you, dear Eden? Thank you so much for joining, Eden. How are you, dear Eden? Thank you so much for joining, Eden. You have to send a beautiful gift, yeah. If you are watching from USA, you have sent a beautiful gift. Core, I am watching from UAE. Thank you so much for watching UAE. UAE people can send the super chat, yeah. Kairos, I write your name, Kairos. Zanab from, I know she is Zanab from Turkey. Looks that she will say from Turkey. Zanab, where are you from watching, Zanab? Zanab, tell me where are you from watching? USA people have to send beautiful gift on the screen, guys. Thank you so much, Jana. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Omar, I write your name, my dear. Hi, Omar. Thank you so much for joining to the ring, Omar. James, how are you, James? Gail, how are you, dear Gail? Thank you so much for joining, Gail. Thank you. Thank you. Kyon Goe Kyungwe Iban, thank you. Thank you, Iban. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. A lot of love and respect for you joining, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much for you joining, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Adam, how are you, dear Adam? Thank you so much for you joining, Adam. How are you, Adam? Thank you so much, Adam. How are you, dear Adam? Thank you so much for you joining. And Anita, how are you, Anita? Thank you so much for joining to the Anita. Male, how are you, dear Male? Thank you so much for joining to the Male, how are you, Male? Leo, Leo Cano, how are you, dear Leo Cano? Thank you so much for joining to the dear Leo Cano. Leo Cano, Yalle, how are you, dear Yalle? Thank you so much for joining to the Yalle. Amber, how are you, dear Amber? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Amber. Yeah, Amber. Doa, how are you, dear Doa? Thank you so much for joining, Doa. Yeah, guys, to write your name, hurry up, guys. Gina, how are you, dear Jana? How are you, dear Jana? Thank you so much for joining to the Jana. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Thank you so much for joining. Saxonok, how are you, Saxonok? Sonok, how are you, Saxonok? Thank you so much for joining. Every respected member have to write your name. It's pronounced Lucine. But thank you. Elena, can you do a super chat, my dear? Lucino, can you do a super chat for the today, my dear? You have to make a small donation of the super chat for the today, my pretty. If you can easily make a donation, click on the money icon to do the super chat. Yeah. Redo, how are you, Redo? Thank you so much for joining. Only do a $10 super chat if you can easily. Shivam, how are you, Shivam? Yeah, if you can, my dear. Thank you so much. If you can, you have to do. Click on the money icon. Send a beautiful super sticker. Yeah, send a beautiful super sticker. Shivam, how are you, Shivam? Thank you so much for joining. Davi, how are you, dear Davi? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Davi. Thank you. Faz, how are you, dear Faz? Thank you so much for joining, Faz. How are you, Faz? Anne, how are you, dear Anne? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Anne. And thank you so much, Anne. 6767, you sent a 67. Yeah, Davi, you are 6 and 67. Anaya, how are you, dear Anaya? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Anaya. Taylor, how are you, Taylor? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Taylor. Valeria, how are you, dear Valeria? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Valeria. Thank you so much for you joining to stream, dear Valeria. A lot of love and respect. Margaret, how are you, dear Margaret? Margaret, thank you so much for joining to stream, Margaret. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Sadi, how are you, dear Sadi? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Sadi. And thank you so much for you joining to stream. Shekina, how are you, dear Shekina? Esther, how are you, Esther? Thank you so much for joining, Esther. How are you, Esther? Thank you so much for you joining, Esther. Jawar, how are you, dear Jawar? How are you, Jawar? Thank you so much for joining, Jawar. Thank you so much, Esther and Jawar. A lot of love and respect. Alice, how are you, dear Alice? How are you, dear Alice? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Leonard, how are you, Leonard? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Leonard. Ayat, how are you, dear Ayat? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Lucas, how are you, dear Lucas? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Valeria is birthday. Happy birthday, Valeria. Happy birthday. David, don't spam, my dear. Hi Kevin, how are you, Kevin? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Kevin. How are you, Kevin? Thank you so much, Kevin. Why is everything why saying I have to give him he's got a time out, my dear. I like and subscribing everything. Kini and Kane, how are you, pretty Kane? How are you, dear Kane? Kane, where are you from watching, Kane? Thank you so much for joining my stream. Favarax, where are you from watching, Favarax? Thank you so much for joining, Favarax. Where are you from watching, Favaraxes? Thank you. Thank you. Where are you from watching, my lovely brother? Can you do a super chat, my lovely brother? Adolf, how are you, dear Adolf? Thank you so much for joining. Matti, how are you, dear Matti? Thank you so much for joining, Matti. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. A lot of love and respect for you joining, guys. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Samne, how are you, Samne? Thank you so much for joining. Ariel, how are you, dear Ariel? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Ariel. How are you, Ariel? Thank you so much for you joining. Can you do Avin? How are you, dear Avin? How are you, Avin? Anybody can do a super chat, anybody? Voni, how are you, dear Voni? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Voni. Wonhi, how are you, Wonhi? Yasmin, how are you, Yasmin? Anybody can do a super chat. 67. Male, you have to send us 67, please. Yongi, how are you, Yongi? Thank you so much for joining. Adeline, how are you, dear Adeline? How are you, Adeline? Adeline, can you send a laughing disco, Adeline? Thank you so much. Jama, how are you, dear Jama? Jamama, how are you, Jamama? Thank you. Jamama is my favorite name. Jamama, where are you from watching? Ellie, how are you, dear? Elliot, how are you, dear? Elliot, thank you so much for joining. Elliot, thank you. Elliot, thank you. Park Jam, how are you, dear? Park Jam. Park Jiman, thank you so much for joining Twisted Terrain. Elliot, how are you, Elliot? Thank you so much for joining Twisted Terrain, dear Elliot. Yakin, how are you, Yakin? Thank you so much, Yakin. Please send a laughing disco, guys. Thank you, Stray Kids, Stray Kids. Thank you, thank you. Asile, how are you, dear Asile? Thank you so much for joining to Cittering. Asile, how are you, Asile? Thank you. I'm seeing from Australia. Thank you so much for watching from Australia. Can you do a super chat for the Australia? For the Australia, in the name of the Australia, you have to do a one donation. Marlon, how are you, dear Marlon? Thank you so much for joining to the stream. Click on the money icon. Click on the money icon. Do the donation. Crystal, how are you, Crystal? Thank you so much for joining, Crystal. I don't understand English. You, Natalie? Okay, Natalie. Jolly, how are you, dear Jolly? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Jolly. How are you, Jolly? Alice, how are you, dear Alice? Thank you so much for joining to the stream. Monster, how are you, Monster? Thank you so much for joining to the thank you so much for joining, Monster. Yeah, if you can easily to do a super chat, my dear yeah, Jemima. Mathis, how are you, dear Mathis? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Mathis. Adora, how are you, dear Adora? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Adora. Laria, how are you, dear Laria? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Laria. A lot of love and respect for you joining, Laria. Jacob, how are you, dear Jacob? Please, someone do a super chat, guys. Please, someone do a super chat, guys. Thank you. Stephanie, how are you, Stephanie? Thank you so much. Sarah, how are you, Sarah? Thank you, Sarah. Eva, how are you, dear Eva? How are you, Eva? Thank you so much for joining, Eva. Thank you. Please, guys, someone do a super chat, guys. Click on the money icon to do a super chat, guys. Scarlett, how are you, Scarlett? How are you, Scarlett? Thank you so much for joining, Scarlett. Thank you. Carly, how are you, dear Carly? Thank you so much, Carly. How are you, Carly? Sophia, how are you, dear Sophia? Thank you so much for joining. Tassion, how are you, Tassion? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Tassion. Thank you. Jama, how are you, dear Jama? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Jama. How are you, Jama? Thank you, Jama. Bala, how are you, dear Bala? Please, someone do a super chat, guys. Ivana, how are you, dear Ivana? Thank you, Ivana. How are you, Ivana? Lara, how are you, Lara? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, dear Lara. Hatter, how are you, dear Hatter? Thank you so much for joining to the stream, Hatter. It is not a color, it is a curly. Carly. That's right. Lavinia, how are you, dear Lavinia? How are you, Lavinia? Judith, how are you, dear Judith? How are you, Judith? Lavinia, Larissa, how are you, Larissa? Thank you so much, Larissa. Yeah, okay, dear. Kyle, can you send a laughing disco for on our stream? Can you send a beautiful gift on the screen for the today? Leo, how are you, dear Leo? Thank you so much for joining, Leo. Thank you. Sabali, how are you, Sabali? Amanda, how are you, dear Amanda? Monia, how are you, dear Monia? Tegan, how are you, dear Tegan? Millie, how are you, dear Millie? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Please, guys, someone do a super chat, guys. Asbela, how are you, dear Asbela? Thank you so much for joining to stream. Asbela, how are you, dear Asbela? Thank you so much for joining. Tegan, I'm good, my dear. Tegan, can you do a donation on our stream? Click on the money icon to do a super chat for the today. Munia, I write your name there. Isa, how are you, dear Isa? Thank you so much for you joining, Isa. Rachel, can you, Rachel? How are you, dear Rachel? Thank you so much for you joining, Rachel. Rachel, how are you, dear Rachel? Harper, how are you, dear Harper? Thank you so much for joining, Harper. Yeah, click on the money icon on the left corner. You will be on the right corner. Sorry, on the right corner you will be showing a money icon. Click on the money icon, my dear, to do a super chat for the today. Melissa, how are you, dear Melissa? Thank you so much for you joining, Melissa. Send me a beautiful super sticker. Nida, how are you, dear Nida? Thank you so much for joining. Faisal, how are you, dear Faisal? Thank you, Faisal. Lee, how are you, dear Lee? Thank you so much for joining. Lily, how are you, pretty Lily? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Lily. Lily, I write your name, pretty Lily. Thank you, Lily. Anis, how are you, dear Anis? Thank you so much for your joining, Anis. How are you, Anis? Darley, how are you, dear Darley? Thank you so much for joining, Darley. How are you, Darley? Thank you so much for joining, Darley. Ghana, how are you, dear Ghana? Thank you so much, Ghana. How are you, Ghana? Pika, how are you, Pika? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Pika. Yeah. Branson, how are you, Branson? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Branson. How are you, Branson? I'm Branson. I write your name, my dear. Tom, how are you, dear Tom? How are you, dear Tom? Thank you so much for joining. Dana, how are you, dear Dana? Please, guys, do a super chat, guys. Make a small donation, no worry, but do a super chat, guys. Monia, it is Amana. How are you, Moana? That's right. Amelie, how are you, Amelie? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Amelie. How are you, dear Amelie? Thank you. Thank you, Yona. How are you, Yona? Thank you so much for joining. Please, guys, somebody is do a super chat or send laughing disco, guys. Olivia, how are you, dear Olivia? How are you, Olivia? Please, guys, send a laughing disco, flow state, anything have to send, guys. Yeah, anything have to send, guys, for the appreciation, please, guys. Aletan, how are you, dear Alete? Thank you so much for you joining, Aletan. Thank you. Thank you so much for you joining. Sayor, how are you, Sayor? Sayor C, how are you, Sayor C? Thank you so much for joining. Eva, how are you, dear Eva? Eva, please send a super sticker, Eva. Do a super chat. Coco, how are you, Coco? Thank you so much for joining, Coco. Please, guys, somebody have do a donation for the super chat, guys. Please, any superhero have sent have to send us, any superhero have sent do a super chat. Yeah. Bate, how are you, dear Bate? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Bate. Leoran, how are you, dear Leoran? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Leora. How are you, Leora? Coco, how are you, dear Coco? I write your name, my dear. Alicia, how are you, dear Alicia? Thank you so much for joining. Mila, how are you, dear Mila? Thank you so much for joining. Please, somebody do a super chat, guys. Cake, how are you, dear Cake? Thank you so much for joining, Cake. Melia, how are you, dear Melia? How are you, pretty Melia? Thank you so much for joining, Melia. Sumaye, how are you, dear Sumaye? Thank you so much for joining to a stream, dear Sumaye. Kaga, how are you, dear Kaga? Thank you so much, Kaga. Please, guys, do a super chat, guys. Please add super chat, guys. X Zan, how are you, dear Zan? Thank you so much for joining, Zan. How are you, Zan? Aurora, how are you, dear Aurora? How are you, Aurora? Thank you so much for joining, Aurora. Rovi, how are you, dear Rovi? Thank you so much for joining to stream, Rovi. To write your name in the chat, guys. Hurry up to write your name in the chat, guys. Anybody is sending laughing disco, guys? Any superhero have to sending a laughing disco right now, guys? Aurora, how are you, Aurora? Thank you so much for joining, Aurora. Andori, how are you, Andori? Thank you so much for joining, Andori. Aurora, how are you, Aurora? Thank you so much for joining, Aurora.